Just a flavour there of what's been going on in Paris. Away from France, women in Islam was one of the main topics being discussed at a special event yesterday by the guest speaker Abu Khadeejah Abdul Wahid. Many Muslim men and women gathered at the Guildhall in Gloucester, and not only did they discuss a variety of Islamic topics and issues, but they were also able to take away literature explaining what about the faith in more detail. I managed to get Imam Abu Khadeejah's reaction to the terrorist attack in Paris.
Abu Khadeejah, I was listening to your lecture, and as an imam and somebody who educates Muslim people, I was very pleased to hear that you were telling the congregation, there's a lot of men here, that they should not follow any group that promotes terrorists or terrorism, including ISIS.
Absolutely. Our position for many decades has been very clear. All forms of extremism, regardless of which direction they come from or which group of people they come from, then we completely and utterly condemn it, whether it be killing of Muslims, killing of non-Muslims in a Muslim country, in the Western world. I remember going right back to 1993 when the Trade Center was bombed for the first time in New York, and eventually Umar Abdurrahman was convicted in the United States for that. I remember even in those days we were at the forefront of condemning that type of behavior, because we believe that this type of ideology is rooted in a sect that arose in the time of the fourth caliph of Islam, and his name was Ali. May Allah be pleased with him. And they rebelled against him. So these people aren't just rebellious against non-Muslims, they're rebellious against Muslims. They will shed the blood of men, women, children, young, old, without mercy. And whether that person happens to be a Muslim or non-Muslim really doesn't count as far as they're concerned. And this is why you find that in many of these terrorist attacks, they will just as easily kill Muslims as non-Muslims. And of course, killing of any soul, innocent soul, unjustly is something that is condemned by any right-minded person, and more so by the religion that Muhammad, peace be upon him, came with.
Now, the situation in France, obviously these so-called Muslim people, they judged that these journalists or the cartoonists did something wrong, and they were actually passing on judgment on them and punishing them for it. Is that right, and or were they wrong?
They have no authority to pass punishments or imprison anyone or to fine anyone. They have no right to do anything like that. That is the right of those in authority, those in government, those who have the apparatus of government and the courts. That's why we have a court system in the Muslim countries. Now, just because someone gets away with something, or you believe someone has gotten away with something, vigilantism is something that is condemned and forbidden in Islam. Islam is an ordered religion with an ordered structure of leadership, government, courts, police, judiciary, and so on. So going into a press office and with a Kalashnikov and with bombs and killing everyone inside and then leaving that building and killing police officers in the street, all this does is bring about an image in the minds of non-Muslims that Islam is a barbaric religion, and nothing could be further from the truth, because if one looks at the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his disciples, you find that they were the most generous and the most kind and the most merciful and the easygoing of people. Even if they had a neighbor who was a Jew or a Christian, they would never allow him to go hungry. So with regard to what took place yesterday, these individuals, or the last few days on Wednesday, then what you find is that these people are actually an offspring and an offshoot of their masters, who are ISIS in reality. Their ideology is driven by the same ideology that drives ISIS. These are murderous individuals who only yesterday they were thugs and street robbers and drug dealers, and all of a sudden overnight they become vanguards of Islam, defending the honor of the Prophet. The Prophet described them actually in an authentic tradition. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that they will appear a people, they will enter Islam and exit Islam just like an arrow shoots through its target. And he said in another narration that they are the worst of killers under the sky. So they are the worst. We consider them to be from the worst of humanity. In fact, as Muslims we hold that jihad is truly against these types of individuals. They are the ones who should be prevented. They are the ones who should be imprisoned, and they are the ones who should be condemned from every pulpit and every article and every website and every Twitter account. There should be no Muslim who should be in two minds about the Islamic condemnation of this type of behavior.
So obviously they think they're defending Islam and Islam's name and Prophet Muhammad's name. In God's view, or in your view, what do you think God will actually do with them? Will he welcome them into heaven? Because they think they're going to go to paradise.
No, they are deceived and they are deluded if they think that their actions will lead them to paradise. In reality, the Prophet, as the Prophet Muhammad himself said, that they will recite the Quran, meaning they will recite the book that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, and it will not go beyond their collarbones, meaning that it will not sink into their hearts. They have no understanding of the book that they are reading. So them actually considering themselves to be welcomed at the gates of paradise for entry into paradise, in fact we say the opposite. That these types of activities lead to the wrath and the anger of Allah, not His mercy. Because if you are not merciful to others, then God is not merciful to that person. And that is an authentic tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, that he who is not merciful will not be shown mercy.
They just heard the condemnation from Abu Khadeejah Abdul Wahid. Now, with events in Paris this week, attention has yet again turned to the Islamic faith. As we were hearing earlier, an Islamic event took place yesterday at the Guildhall Art Centre in Gloucester. They were designed to give non-Muslims correct and authentic information about Islam. Abu Khadeejah Abdul Wahid from Birmingham delivered two talks, one about Salafism and the other women in Islam. BBC's reporter Anisha Indawala asked what the key messages were of these talks.
Well, as far as who are the Salafis, then that will basically explain what it means to be a Salafi, in essence, which is to follow the disciples of the Prophet Muhammad, to take them as the example and the model to be followed. So when we measure the various Islamic sects that are in the world today, whether it be ISIS or the Shiites or other than them from the politicized radical groups and so on, then we measure their message with the message of the disciples of the Prophet Muhammad. If it matches, then we accept it. If it opposes, then we reject it. So the measure between truth and falsehood in Islam, theologically speaking, is what the disciples of the Prophet Muhammad took from him directly by way of revelation of the Quran and by way of the understanding of the prophetic tradition.
Now, going on to the second talk, women in Islam, what's your message there?
With regard to women in Islam, then it's basically to portray that actually, if you compare what Muhammad, peace be upon him, was sent with by his Lord, you will find that actually he brought for the women honor, respect, rights, that they are not to be harmed, that they have duties for themselves before their Lord, and that men, that they are responsible for much of the care of the women. Now, giving a Muslim woman her rights does not necessarily necessitate that there is equality between the two sexes. Men and women are different.
So is there equality in Islam for women?
Right, there's equality in terms of reward and there's equality in terms of piety.
Who gives the reward?
The reward is God-given. It is God who created women and it is God who created man. It is God who commanded the men and it is the same God who commanded the women. So these regulations in Islam are not man-made. We don't say that the lawmaker is a human or even Muhammad. Rather, God was the one who revealed it to Muhammad and all of the prophets, Jesus and John and Abraham and Moses and so on. So these revealed messages came from God through those prophets, and they were given to men and they were given to women. So their roles may be different, but it doesn't mean that their reward is any less, because the highest echelons of paradise are equally for men, pious men, as they are for pious women.
My name's Omar, I'm from Bristol.
Omar, the talk that you were in there, what are your thoughts?
Okay, it was very insightful. It was a good reminder, and it clarified the correct understanding of Islam, and it showed us an insight into the moderate path of Islam, to stay away from extremes and to be on the right path.
My name is Mikhail. This is great. This is great because, the people, we need clarity, and, we have a principle in our religion that says knowledge precedes speech and action. And, these people that are doing these things, they're not acting upon knowledge, because our religion, like the Prophet said, is the Quran, is the Sunnah, meaning the way of the Prophet, peace be upon him, with the understanding of his companions.
Mohammed, what are your thoughts?
I think it was really good because nowadays we're exposed to society where everybody speaks and they do whatever they want to do and then they claim it's from Islam. So it's good to see that their actions are from their own doings rather than claiming it's from Islam. And it helps us also to ourselves, to clarify to ourselves that as a Muslim, that you're here to worship your Creator rather than to oppress people, whoever they may be.